Hello. The mic is hot. So I'm in the process of filing a grievance against Seton Hall, against Seton Hall for possible retaliation after I made a complaint made in good faith. Um, and I'm trying to track down all the work I've done in the psychology courses I've taken at a graduate level. So I have taken, um, I guess, 21 graduate psychology courses. So I guess about 10 equals a master's. And well, I'll go over like how many courses equal what degree. But for anybody who's taken, um, anybody who has a bachelor's in, their undergrad knows that you need certain amount of courses towards your major. Um, I believe the number, I know the number, was for me, I needed 7 courses towards my major, and I believe it was 3 towards my minor. And so I have a bachelor's in biology. A lot of it's filled with liberal arts stuff where you had to take certain core curriculum courses, a humanities course, a science course, um, maybe a writing course or something. So that filled up a bunch of your courses, but then you also selected a major, and you needed courses that were related to the major. So I took Intro Bio 1, 2, and the labs associated with them. I took cellular biology, microbiology, genetics. I took biochemistry, and I took vertebrate evolution. Those are the 7 that went towards my biology major. Then I also took evolution, and I also took developmental biology. So I took 9 biology courses. Now for chemistry, I took general chemistry 1, 2. I took organic chemistry 1, 2, and I took biochemistry. So I could take inorganic chemistry, and I have a bachelor's in chemistry. I think it says on my transcript like bachelor's of art, bachelor's of science in chemistry. Um, I also have coursework in anthropology and political science and psychology, physics, calculus, pre-calculus, and some other courses. I'm just pulling up my for my what I studied at Saybrook. I took histories and systems of psychology. I took developmental psychology. I took research foundations and literacy. I took psychology of consciousness. I took psychophysiology of the human stress response. I took um, systems of psychotherapy. I took traumatic experiences and relationships. I took a workshop on human sexuality. It was contact hours. I took ethics and law in psychotherapy and behavioral science. I took qualitative data collection and analysis. I took models of consciousness. I took pro seminar in consciousness, spirituality, and integrated health. I took biological basis of behavior. I took personality theory and research. I took cognition and effect in human behavior. I took um, I took the psychology of multiculturalism in North America. I took social psychology, and I also took psychopathology and diagnosis. And I got an A in psychopathology and diagnosis. And when I was at Seton Hall, I was also taking abnormal psychology, and I had a 100 average in abnormal psychology. That's the diagnosing one. And I took counseling skills, counseling theories. I took oriented professional counseling. And I took human development at Seton Hall in their graduate counseling program. And I also have coursework at the Seton Hall School of Law in health and hospital law. They're a top 10 health law program, and I did well in those courses. And that's some of the most rewarding work I've done in my academic career. Um, for me, I never wanted to be a biology major. Um, College was never meant for the sole purpose of applying to medical school, but that's exactly what it became. As soon as I entered the pre-med society and expressed interest in going to medical school, I basically became a pre-med biology major by default. And this was before you could even declare a major. So at Dickinson, you weren't allowed to declare a major until your sophomore year. And basically, because I was on a pre-health, a pre-med track, I was basically a biology major from the start, where I was taking biology and chemistry and whatnot my freshman year. And in comparison, my sister, I joke, like sometimes we both went to the same school. We went to Dickinson College, and her courses were like every other day. They were in the afternoon. The latest course at Dickinson was like 4 o'clock. But I joke, I said she took like Hacky Sack 101, and I'm taking, um, biology and whatnot. And it's at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And so there were other things. I was more interested in computer science. Not that I wanted to like program video games and whatnot. I thought that the future of healthcare was computer assisted, where doctors would be relying on technologies to help diagnose, and that kind of is the case nowadays. Um, so I wanted a curriculum in code and math, and I also wanted to take sign language, and all the things that I wanted to take going into college, I didn't take, and I felt very unsatisfied with my undergraduate experience. I didn't study things I wanted to on the time that I had budgeted to study them, and I felt when I got out of school, I had now to study things in order to make myself a marketable job candidate. And I wish I would have been just, like a chemistry major. Um, there was something else I was going to say um, about my undergraduate experience. Um, oh, I think, there's always this story that I like to tell. I won't do it that much justice right now, but we used to take a biannual trip to Atlantic City. This was before I was the age of 21, and these trips would coincide with the baseball and football preview issue of Sports Illustrated. And I remember, since this was one of the only things that I could do while in Atlantic City, um, I remember reading them, and I wanted to become as good of a writer as the Sports Illustrated people, but a better predictor. I had strong analytical skills at the time, and that carried into college. I got an A in general chemistry, which is a lot of math, and basically I wanted to write like a sports column to inform bettors. Like I wanted to give an advice column on which teams to bet on, and so Or another possibility was, working for the companies that set the spreads. So if you bet on football, you might be familiar with a spread where like a favorite gives points. So if the Lions are playing the Jets, the Lions might have to give a touchdown, might have to give 7 points. So if they win 30-22, they cover the spread. But if they win 30-26, then the Jets cover the spread. So if you bet on the Lions and the Jets lost 30-26, you still lost your bet. And so I thought, possibly with I probably, if I took an aptitude test, I probably would have been an accountant or something. And so I thought of using my skills to possibly set these spreads. And but I never really described it as sports journalism until recently, but that's kind of what it is. And one of the reasons why I didn't really pursue this is because it wasn't considered like a serious career option. One of the things that was attractive about medicine, other than my genuine interest in science, was job security, where I could be my own boss and I can control my private practice. I could set my own hours, and that was something that was more important to me than something like pay overall, I guess. And I still wanted a salary that could provide for a family, so that's one of the things I was interested in. The other career was hotel and restaurant management. As like I said, we were taking biannual trips to Atlantic City, so I had a lot of exposure to casinos and hotels and restaurants. Nothing like, there are like YouTubers and Instagram people nowadays who go to like the top restaurants in the world. There's that one guy who starts out, like maybe going to restaurants around New York City. He's like, it's some sort of like taco stand or something, and then he's going to like the most exclusive restaurant in some hill in Spain or something. And but I had a lot of exposure to restaurants, and we went to this place called Cafe on the Green in Queens, and we were, the owner, he came over and he was very friendly to people. His name was Joe Franco. Place got shut down for like a zoning violation or something. The maitre d' was Claudio. There was Luigi and Silvana, I believe her name was. My father used to joke that she had the same name as a light bulb company. And, but they always had the portobello mushrooms as a special on the appetizers. Um, but we went on cruises, and I always found cruises to be boring. But we were exposed to a lot of vacation stuff and hotels, and basically I wanted to go into a hospitality industry and set them. I didn't want to become a cook, but I guess I wanted to set the menu and have a product and experience that people would enjoy. There are some restaurants I never send food back and say like this is unacceptable, but there are some places that I wonder like how did they eat this and they think like this is like restaurant quality or something. Um, but I never found anything special in Atlantic City. Most of the restaurants we went to were forgettable. Um, there was the Ram's Head that we liked. They might have Chateaubriand. I think they had a beef Wellington on occasion. And later on, I would go to a place called Robert's Steakhouse that had Kobe steak. But other than that, I don't really recall what the names of the restaurants were. We used to stay at Harrah's. We used to stay at the Showboat. And we also used to stay at Trump's Castle, which later became Trump's Marina. And so gambling was, ingrained in my family DNA, but it was taboo because sports betting was illegal, and you know, other gambling was restricted to Atlantic City and Las Vegas. And what I heard about restaurants were they had a high turnover rate. About 70% of restaurants fail in their first year, so there wasn't a lot of job security with that. And as far as like inventing stuff and creating things, I felt everything under the sun type of thing. You had to be some sort of genius savant to invent something, but I think I sold myself short. I think, um, I have an idea for an internal blood monitoring system, and I think with a decellularized extracellular matrix, it's actually something that's kind of feasible. And but there are things that I wanted to study in college that I never got the opportunity to, and I regret how I went about it. Um, a lot of the schools in the Northeast are touted as being some of the best in the country. It was basically described as like the mecca of higher education. You have the Ivy League schools, and then you have schools that are maybe a tier below. And but the problem was they were all liberal arts schools, and every time I toured one of these schools, there's a scene from Entourage where Vincent Chase is trying to look for a new agent, and they all have the same. I like this better for like some of the medical schools that I toured, where basically give the same presentation, but they all had this thing. The thing with Entourage, they say Mercedes, McDonald's, Vincent Chase. We're gonna turn Vincent Chase into a brand, and they all give the same spiel, and it's like trying to think of some other brands that are Rolex, Porsche, Vincent Chase. I don't know if Porsche is, it's a nice brand, but I guess as far as popularity, um, so all these liberal arts schools I felt did very little to differentiate themselves. They all seemed the same. They all said, we have 33 core requirements that you need to take, and if the school was Catholic, you had to take a religion. And basically, I crossed that school off my list because I had my fill of religion. I went to Catholic school my entire life. I wanted to go to a secular college, not because I was abandoning God, but because I wanted to diversify my experiences, my education. I wanted to learn from a more diverse group of people. Um, I wanted to expand and diversify my education and the people that I was surrounded with. And then, they all had, like College Humor kind of makes a joke about like a small town college where it's like, here's the building that's not going to be open until after you leave and stuff. Um, so really, like, it came down to school spirit, location, and student body. And I didn't want to go to a big school. I didn't like Franklin Square, so I crossed off NYU. Um, so I liked a more intimate setting, smaller student body, and a student body of a certain um, socioeconomic background or something, I guess. So I chose Dickinson College, and I regret that decision. Having taken courses at different universities now, the course offerings at like Colorado State University compared to what I had, there's a lot more offerings. Like pretty much like when I was studying genetics, microbiology, cell biology, that was it. And like the courses at CSU might be cell biology related, but it might be like pineapples and endocrine metabolism or something. And I don't know. I feel like I read that somewhere that one of the schools has something like that specific, but they might have something that falls under microbiology, but in different settings, where one might be epidemiology, and one might be something else, and so you can get that. There's more course offerings. I don't know. And there was a time where I appreciated the liberal arts thing. I felt, my reading comprehension, my critical thinking was shaped, um, where I could pick up tone and context and different things in writing. And my friend used to argue, you can't pick up sarcasm in text. And I said, yeah, you can. And it's basically how it's written. and I felt that my education, provided me with the skills necessary to apply that type of um, verbal comprehension, um, verbal reasoning skills to different types of papers and whatnot. And unfortunately, I think it's kind of waned over the years. I think I mentioned that I had concerns for my emotional IQ. I think having my emotional IQ intact, like I told this to when I was preparing for the MCAT, I took a practice MCAT, and the results were that when I was taking humanities sections, so basically the way the MCAT verbal used to be was they give you three writing passages, and they came from three different things. There was social sciences, there was natural sciences, and I believe there was one other, and or it might just be those two, and you can get two natural sciences and one social sciences. Um, I think on the MCAT I got it was like three social sciences or something, but on the practice ones, I noticed that I was scoring higher in the social sciences than on the natural sciences. And basically, I say that the natural science ones were more detail oriented, while the the social sciences were more theory of mind. They were more tone and context, and that's how it's written. Where natural science might just be like there's no reason to express tone and stuff. And I feel that my emotional IQ, my ability to feel empathy and emotionally connect with others, allow me to do that through writing. And having been assaulted and put into a coma and stuff, I feel has a negative impact on that. And it's upsetting to me because I made a conscious decision to stay at a school that I never wanted to go to because I felt it would be better for my long-term career goals, and that I always felt, when I was taking those practice MCATs, I credited the school a lot for having sharpened those skills. Although I think, from grade school and high school, these are things that I've been working on, and you know, I feel all that gets lost with being assaulted by the police and put into a coma and falsely imprisoned and being put in a state of fear my entire life where basically I'm just on edge that, um, every day is kind of like my last day type thing. Um, so I was interested in hotel restaurant management, sports journalism, and computer science in addition to um, healthcare, whether that be biology or chemistry. Um, I also did have an interest in healthcare policy and healthcare administration. And actually, after I graduated, I said that, that's a better fit for, like, what I wanted to do. And that's why I'm so happy and grateful for the opportunity at Seton Hall School of Law. And I'm continuing my efforts to get a PhD in psychology so I can better inform healthcare and healthcare policy. And so, what am I doing right now? Well, I think there was something else I was going to say. In addition to like, college was never for the sole purpose of applying to medical school, but medical school was the only career really that required an undergrad. So, it was basically I wanted to be there. One of my father's employees said, about college students, those are the people who are at school, they want to be there. And like, I want to be there. Um, but I wanted to be studying something else, I guess. Um, so let's just go over this thing. This is Parasol, and it's supposed to test your engagement in the course material. And here we have my human development course, and you can get a taste for this assignment here. I um, I downloaded the I was able to download this course. How did I do it? So it says download my comments and a document. I already did this, but I'm just going to show you. So I have these. Did it show? Um, Let me do the. Entire screen here. So we got my agendas. So I was mentioning my interest in healthcare policy. So a lot of these things started at a young age. Paper Reduction Work Act for doctors. This is, like pre-high school, high school era. Policy based on public perception that doctors prescribe based on kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies rather than sound professional judgment. Stark law anti-kickback statutes. So things like conflict of interest and stuff. These things started shaping around my early 20s, I guess when I was an undergrad. Um, how direct to consumer marketing may create drug seeking behavior. This started around high school and college. How, in the wake of Sandy Hook, patients with fairly benign mental health conditions such as anxiety or depression may avoid seeking treatment for fear of being associated with mass murder and gun violence. So, this happened shortly after I graduated from college. Reduction of training for doctors, that's when probably grade school, and more uniform standard of care in less locality to reduce anxiety for patients. This was around grade school, end of life decision making, healthcare proxies. These are, high school related. Um, Doctor control in private practice, prevent insurance companies from dictating care in a managed setting. This is, from a young age around high school. Internal blood monitoring device. This is around high school. And VR for sex therapy. This came around, I mentioned, in 2016. That's when I got the Oculus Rift. I had a NVIDIA 1070 Founders Edition graphics card to run it. Clinical test for competence. And then actually later on, I had a desktop that I'm currently sitting next to. Clinical test for competence to declare mature minor status. This came around 2020, 2022. So I was taking the law of patient care at Seton Hall School of Law, and I started a section on adolescent decision making. And I remember I said after I took the course, I wanted to advocate for mature minor status. So I took a course, Children's Health and the Law, and that expanded on mature minor status. And basically, I came up with the idea for a clinical test for competence to declare mature minor status. The therapeutic alliance, one where the patient would feel comfortable divulging sensitive, potentially embarrassing details of their life. Sympathetic, compassionate caretaker, barriers in care. And so this is from grade school. And these have all been shaped. Uh, this one I'm going to highlight. This one came in the wake of the Sandy Hook things, but everything else on here basically is shaped from my experiences um, with my father from a very young age. So, direct to consumer marketing, I mean, that starts in grade school. Um, Public perception that doctors prescribe based on kickbacks, that actually starts in grade school. So, I used to get baseball tickets to go to Met games. So, we went to the World Series when I was, like 12 years old, 13 years old. And Paperwork Reduction Act. My father always used to work, still does work long hours, although it seems like he's coming home a little bit earlier. But they kind of like, so like getting the tickets to those baseball games when I was 12, 13 years old, that's the start of, my father would get, these gifts from multiple drug reps. And then eventually they abolished the practice of giving doctors gifts. And then with, social media, there was more exposure to the public perception where, people were saying doctors prescribe based on kickbacks rather than sound professional judgment. So everything comes full circle, and it's something that took shape from a very young age to, um, you know, later time in my life. So this is the post from. Let me just download it again. So I hit this download button, downloads into a document, and this opens up. So these are more things. I guess I could put this into my agenda as well. When I was young, so liability was always a thing. When I was young, a friend's mother remarked about advice I gave to my friend about preventing cramps. Knowing about liability from my father's private medical practice, I became self conscious and took a position where I would not give out medical advice without proper qualifications, that is, licensure. This is to reduce the likelihood of harm to the patient that would be caused by giving out unfounded or incorrect advice. I always like to say, I like to speak with conviction because I have conviction in what I say, not because I took a Dale Carnegie course. And that means, like, if I tell you to take a certain medication, that's because I have confidence in that medication. If I don't have confidence, I might refer you to somebody else. And it's different as a counselor. So, my role as a counselor, I don't believe is one that gives out advice. So, establishing a safe space for the client is paramount to me. I often say I want to speak with conviction in what I say because I have conviction in what I say, and not because I took a Dale Carnegie course. I want my client to have confidence in my professional judgment, and I want to project a warm, compassionate caretaker persona, one that is sensitive to the information the client tells me and their needs. Trust, privacy, and confidentiality are components of this safe space. I would not want to break my client's trust by breaching privacy or confidentiality. And by the way, um, so basically, we had to go through the ACA Code of Ethics and click on something. So this one says, trust is a cornerstone of the counseling relationship, and counselors have the responsibility to respect and safeguard the client's right to privacy and confidentiality. So I have this thing about safe space and that little spiel about the Dale Carnegie course. Then there must be one on informed consent. So it says the doctrine of informed consent is a favorite of mine. Justice Cardozo said every human being of adult years and sound mind has a right to determine what shall be done with his own body. The mind is part of the body. I want to say the mind is part of the soul and should not be subject to unwanted contact. I have intentions of doing research that will better inform healthcare policy, and the common rule has language in it that protects vulnerable populations from being coerced into enrolling in clinical trials, and also the protection of unborn children from being enrolled in research they cannot yet consent to. A patient should be informed of the risk and benefits of treatment as well as other treatment options. A patient should be informed how their information will be used. Then I wish to provide counseling for those experiencing prolonged complex grief, those suffering from PTSD, and those who might have been victims of sexual abuse and neglect. I take a humanistic approach, and like some others with this philosophy, do not wish to pathologize everything. I wish to foster a safe environment where I can still trust in my patients to facilitate communication. Then I respond to a classmate and I say, "Hi, Miriam. Thank you for sharing how your cultural background has shaped your approach to understanding clients. You make a point that just because a person shares a similar cultural background, they may have different experiences and might hold different attitudes towards mental health. I like the quote, to overcome these blind spots, I'll engage in reflective practice. I find engaging in personal reflection is a great way to better understand my genuine self and values, furthering my development. It may also be useful in identifying biases. Since we have engaged in out pre-unit reflections, I have taken time to consider my interactions with various populations when I go about my daily routine to further reflect on my responses. Then I have a main post here. My own personal mission statement aligns with many of the ACA Code of Ethics, including autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, fidelity, and veracity. My Roman Catholic upbringing has shaped many of my values, and I abide by the Golden Rule. I have dedicated myself to the educational training of my chosen profession in order to practice in a competent and ethical manner, one that does not cause harm to the client. In addition to my education training, that provides a foundation of knowledge, I would need moral integrity and good bedside manner to be sensitive to a patient's intimate details and their vulnerability, as they may have to disrobe. Individuals of abuse or trauma may have a hard time opening up to someone. I wish to foster a safe environment where I can instill trust in my patients in order to facilitate communication. I have been working on my moral integrity and bedside manner since high school in preparation for a career in healthcare. I wanted to reduce the anxiety of the patient experience. I did not mean to hit enter, I'm still typing. The Seton Hall mission statement indicates that it prepares students to be leaders in their professional lives in a global setting. I prepared myself to be a leader in my industry, one that was respected and seen as a credible source of information. I wanted others to emulate my practice and rely on my work as a reference. This might include peer-reviewed publications or consultations. I did not consider the addressing or respectful model when shaping my personal mission statement, mainly because I was unaware of their existence at the time. However, these models have been useful in potentially identifying any biases. We are challenged as therapists to recognize our privilege and fill in any gaps pertaining to cultural knowledge. In order to increase self-awareness and knowledge, one can investigate their own cultural heritage to see what influences them, and then see how this influence impacts the work you do with clients. As mentioned before, I grew up Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I was surrounded by predominantly white individuals with a Catholic upbringing. I choose a secular college mainly I chose a secular college because I wanted to explore and learn from different cultures and religions. I chose a school that offered many study abroad programs. There are still cultures I have yet to explore, which may fill gaps I may have in my cultural awareness. I was raised Roman Catholic, and it shaped many of my values. I went to Catholic grade school and high school, but decided to go to a secular college because I had felt I had my fill of taking religion. However, I never abandoned my faith. Notice how I repeat myself a lot. Some of these things I just said before, and it's not because I knew I was going to be talking about these things. It's not like I said, "Well, I wrote it here, so let me, preface this discussion with me just talking about it." No, it's just things that I bring up a lot, I guess. However, I never abandoned my faith. I had previously been enrolled in another graduate program that I told them I found by searching soul psychology. They had a program that had an emphasis on spirituality that mentioned it could be used for something like a pastoral counselor. I asked about the religious connection during my interview. That's my interview to Seton Hall. I wish to provide grief counseling services, and having some training in religion may be beneficial to those in spiritual crisis. I may supplement a counseling degree with a divinity certificate. I am optimistic my studies will translate into an international environment. I have reached out to Canada to see if my training in the States would suffice their requirements, and they said yes. They also told me I could get my clinical supervision done in the States. Any policy I set to inform comes with the consideration of the global society. And here's another response to a peer. Thank you for your post. I too wish to establish a safe space for my clients. You mentioned traumatic religious experiences, and in a safe space, clients should feel comfortable discussing things such as spiritual crisis. I personally have experienced a situation after a traumatic event. I asked to receive my last rites. A chaplain came and we had a meaningful religious and spiritual conversation. I also threw up all over him. I was quarantined for having C. diff. As you mentioned, keeping an open mind and being willing to know a topic can strengthen the therapeutic alliance. I try to be open minded and tolerant of other people's faiths and cultural backgrounds. So this is this. I came across it. I was looking through passwords for some of my things, and I said, "Oh, gee, I still have this." And unfortunately, I'm locked out of my Seton Hall account. Um, there's a book that I have that has ethics in psychotherapy, counseling, and whatnot. And they talk about, personal disclosures, professional disclosures, and there are texts that say, this might help build rapport um, with the client. I brought up to a administrator, I said, I worry about undermining myself, where I might create distance between myself and the client, where they might question my competencies if I'm telling them I have, all these issues, And she disagreed. She said, she felt it was okay to discuss these things. And this Keith Spiegel, let's see, where is it? Here's ethics in psychology and in the mental health professions. They talk about disclosures, and I trusted some people at Saybrook with information where I told them how I was assaulted by the police and how I felt my emotional IQ was affected by that assault because my brain got shook. I had acute neurological trauma from that assault, and I trusted with them with that information. And one of the guys, this Drake Spieth, he says, "How can we trust you?" Well, because I I extended trust to you. Aren't you the humanistic school? Aren't you supposed to treat people with positive regard, unconditional positive regard? What do you mean? How can you trust me? Like I thought we were adults here. It's not like, it's not like I was hiding, like, well, secretly, I just fucking hate people. And, as soon as you give me this degree, I'm going to be a Jack Kevorkian. No, I'm telling them, like, I care so much about people, but I need someone to care about me. In this situation, I need someone to care about me. I have done many things in my life for the well being of other people, and I am in a situation where I need someone to care about me. And what did they do? They dismissed me. As far as any other things with that school, just, you know, when I went to these conferences out in Pasadena, I kept to myself. I didn't eat with anybody. I went to restaurants by myself. And when I was in the lectures, I was sometimes active, sometimes not, depending on what I had to say. There was one given by Walker Ladd. She was talking about things related to around the time of pregnancy, and I asked her about cesarean sections. I told her I was writing a paper. I wrote a paper on Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, and I was looking up abortions and whether these things might cause broken heart syndrome. And what came up in return was cesarean section. So I asked her, was it the physical stress of the surgery, or was it an emotional component? And these are things that I discussed, and I was open-minded, tolerant. I went to things on LGBTQ plus stuff, and Maslow's needs and spiritual crisis, analytical psychology, policy, writing workshops. I diversified my experiences by going to different types of lectures, and the things I said in the classroom was appropriate for the material, and I don't feel that I should have lost my time and the work I did. Um, so here's one: informed consent in the counseling and relationship, and I have this little piece on what I wrote. They had me in, like, I told them, like, I legally changed my name to Joya, and eventually they changed it. Like, I applied as Joya. Um, it wasn't to deceive them or anything, because I had previously been at the Seton Hall School of Law, and I still had the same student ID number when I applied, and I had legally changed my name in October of 2023. bottom here is the mission statement. As far as